Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this, the 24th Annual Hall of Fame Enshrinement Ceremonies, now about to take place here on the front steps of this shrine of pro football. Football's greatest weekend to all intents and purposes began here when George Halas, Jim Thorpe, and others formed the first pro league, with Thorpe its first president. Halas, Thorpe, Red Grange, and 14 others, including the first fringe of pro football, were enshrined in that first class in 1963. The first fridge, Wilbur Fats Henry, born in nearby Mansfield, Ohio, was a three-time All-America at tiny Washington and Jefferson College in Pennsylvania. Although listed at 250 in his playing days, Henry reportedly scaled well over 300, but was fleet as a deer. And NFL marks for the longest punt, 94 yards, and longest drop kick field goal, 50 yards, are still tops in the NFL record book, and set by Henry back in the 1920s. Let's now meet this year's class of enshrinees as NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle and Chairman of the Hall of Fame Board of Trustees, Stu Wilkins, give them their official welcome to the Hall of Fame. First to be introduced in alphabetical order is a consensus All-America and a Heisman Trophy winner as a Notre Dame quarterback. Later, the great money back of the Green Bay Packers of the Lombardi years, and ninth member from that era to be inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, none other than Paul Hornung. Widely recognized as a premier strong safety of his time and maybe all time, our next inductee was picked for the AFL All-Star Game or Pro Bowl 12 straight years from 1968 through 79. Playing 6 years with the Houston Oilers and 8 years with the Washington Redskins, he's being inducted into the Pro Shrine in his first year of eligibility. Out of Prairie View A&M and into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, let's hear it for Ken Houston. Our next enshrinee also came from a small school, Morgan State, but nevertheless was a second-round draft pick of the Kansas City Chiefs in 1967. This 6'1", 245-pound buzzsaw started middle linebacker in one of the NFL's strongest defensive teams for more than a decade. He made All-Pro, All-AFL, All-AFC, and every year except 1969 from 68 through 76. Welcome to the Hall of Fame, Willie Lanier. One of the most exciting and durable passers in the history of pro football, our next enshrinee holds every significant quantity passing record in the NFL after 18 years with the Minnesota Vikings and the New York Giants. He amassed 50,677 yards in passing and running, about 29 miles, and played in 3 Super Bowls. I give you, of course, Fran Tarkenton. A 3-time All-America, the 1948 Heisman Trophy winner from Southern Methodist, this 5'11", 175-pound halfback did everything in a relatively short 6-year career with the Detroit Lions. He scored 534 points in 6 seasons, an average of 89 per year, including 128 points in his first year, 1950, which earned him Rookie of the Year honors. He was an all-everything, rushing, passing, receiving, punting, place-kicking, and he played defense. For those exploits, he was All-NFL 4 times, selected for the Pro Bowl 5 times. A big welcome for Doak Walker. Now will you please stand and join with Rocco Scotti in the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. When the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, sailors at star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Now will you please remain standing, please, as Reverend C. David Morgan of Calvary Presbyterian Church leads us in prayer.
Let us pray. God, our God, thou who didst create us with a variety of gifts and who dost call us to utilize our resources in life with Hall of Fame intensity, be here present with us today. Assist us as we honor those, Paul and Ken and Willie and Fran and Doak, whose commitment and dedication to their respective sport is exemplary, and favor us with a similar measure of devotion for the whole of life. Whether in scrimmage or Super Bowl, at center field or on the sidelines, may we give to our deeds our best efforts. Guide us in the performance of our tasks, so that our lives may be such that the hearts of mothers and fathers rightly swell with pride, and the eyes of children are uplifted to character and behavior worthy of their emulation. Give us an affection for our moments on the field, an ability to play our best, and that true sportsmanship which willingly shares our enthusiasm for living. Amen.
Here now to give his official welcome to Canton for our visitors from far and wide, may I present his honor, the Mayor of Canton, Sam Persis.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls. Finally, we have come to the hour and the moment which has made this the most hallowed weekend in professional football. 5 men will be presented to us this afternoon who reached the pinnacle of success because they used every inch of their talent and ability and meshed that with significant desire to achieve greatness on the football field. This afternoon, they become immortalized in this great hall, the Hall of Fame of the Professional Football League. We welcome them to the greater Canton community, congratulate them on their great honor, and we welcome each and every one of you this weekend in Canton, Ohio. Thank you.
It is now my pleasure to present to you for his words of welcome to our new class of enshrinees, the Commissioner of the National Football League, Mr. Pete Rozelle.
Thank you, Jim. Members of the clergy, distinguished guests, past inductees in the Hall of Fame, and this year's 1986 class. I've been coming here since 1962, and it's always a very special weekend. But I can usually identify the year of the Hall of Fame when we've been here on down weekends and up weekends, times when things weren't too good in the National Football League, at times when they were. This week, obviously, is an up weekend. You know, the Timken Company was greatly responsible in the forming of this Hall of Fame, and I've been close to many of the people in that company ever since. And Carrie and I got to know and like very much Susie and Tim Timken, and they've always supported the NFL. They have a special feeling for us. Carrie was talking to Tim last night and said, well, how did you get the news on the case? He said, well, I got it like your husband. So I was driving in my car and I heard the news that NFL had lost. And I think Carrie says, gee. He said, well, this is $1.6 billion. Carrie said, well, what did you think? He said, well, I thought, gee, what a damper this is going to put on a Hall of Fame weekend. But we can get back to football now. Get back to today with the Super Bowl participant New England Patriots and the Cardinals. I know we're all looking forward to that. Across the ocean, we have another game kicking off the 1986 season when the Bears and the Cowboys put it on in London. That, of course, will be available to us on television tomorrow. So we're really looking forward to this 86 season. I was somewhat disturbed, however, when I arrived here this week because I've always been, as many of you are, I'm sure, a great admirer of Paul Brown. But frankly, I thought his coaching record was just too good to be true. I got the unsettling answer when I arrived on learning of a lengthy investigation going back many years. I found that the school where he first coached is on probation, Massillon High School. I hope that doesn't put too much of a stain on Paul's record, however. I am delighted to be a part of this ceremony today, welcoming this very special class in Paul Hornung, Ken Houston, Willie Lanier, Doak Walker, and Fran Tarkington. They're very special. They were special as athletes, and they've been special since off the field. And I know I'll share your thrill at having them inducted in the 1986 class for the Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.
During the 9 seasons that Paul Hornung played in Green Bay, one of the key contributors to the Packers' success was wide receiver Max McGee. Today, Max McGee is here to present his former teammate and roommate for induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Max McGee.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have the easiest chore I've ever had in my life. You know, I lived with this guy for 10 years. I've been a best buddy for 30 years, and in about 2 minutes, he will receive this award, which will make him have received every award in football. Every major award Paul Hornung has received. All-American at Notre Dame, Heisman Trophy winner at Notre Dame. Of course, when he left Notre Dame, he wasn't just an ordinary draft choice, he was the bonus plum, which Packers won a lottery to pick the #1 player in the nation, and they picked Paul Hornung. Nowadays, they would call that an impact player. That's the modern modern term, and believe me, Paul was an impact player on the Green Bay Packers. He also was an impact player on half the females in the United States. Well, Paul came to Green Bay in time of turmoil. He had 3 coaches in 3 years, and the good news is the third coach was Vince Lombardi. Vince Lombardi said, "Paul, I got an offense for you." And he put Paul at left halfback, and from there Paul won 2 Most Valuable Player awards. He won the Most Valuable Player award in a championship game. He won every award pro football has to offer, and he did it with style, believe me, because I was right there with him. But statistics never really tell what Paul Hornung did for the Green Bay Packers, because statistics never tell you the times that he blocked that defensive end or he picked up that blitzing linebackers. But I think when you look at championships, that's what you look at. Those things are what makes championships, and that's what Paul did for our team. He did everything. He didn't just run the ball, pass the ball, and kick the ball. He blocked, and for that, his teammates, as well as everybody in the country, realized that he's probably one of the greatest all-around football player maybe to ever play. Paul scored 176 points in a 12-game schedule. If you figure that out, that's about 15 points a game, and I played on teams that didn't average that much. Paul has not only been successful in football, he's been successful in business, and some of his assets are here today, and that's his great friends from Louisville, his business partners. They had a little luncheon for him yesterday that drew 2,000 people in Louisville. All his friends and ex-teammates, I think Herb Adderley said it very well when he said, Paul's the main man, and that's exactly what Paul was to that team. He was the main guy. He also, Mrs. Hornung is here, who helped a little bit to raise both of us. And of course, his best asset is his beautiful wife, Angela, who is sitting in front of me, and we love him dearly. And believe me, I wouldn't be here today if Vince Lombardi were alive, because Vince and Paul had a very great personal relationship as well as a football relationship. And Vince would run me off and he would make this presentation. And Vince made a statement, I think, that signifies what Paul really is. And he said, when the game is on the line, Paul Hornung is the greatest player I've ever saw. And by gosh, I believe it. I present the Golden Boy, Paul Hornung.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hall of Famers, fellow enshrinees, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, Max and I share a lot of things, and he just stole my speech. I want to thank you, Max, for those kind words. We do go back a long way, and I just want to say Max really should be going in the Hall of Fame. More importantly, his beautiful wife, Denise, back home in Minneapolis, is 8 months pregnant, and Max will be a father in 1 more month, and that is definitely Hall of Fame material, considering his age. You know, I see Fuzzy Thurston out in the audience, and Ron Kramer and Herb Adderley and a lot of my teammates. And I can remember back, Fuzz, and he and Jerry Kramer said, stick close to me and I want to get you to Canton. And he was kidding then. But Fuzzy, we're here, and you're here with me. I'm glad you're here. This is the greatest day of my life. I waited a long time to get here. But this weekend, I'll be able to take with me forever. Because this is the most important weekend of my life athletically. Started off in my hometown, Louisville, on Thursday, and continuing on now forever. It's also a day of great Thanksgiving for the Hornung family. I don't have time. Time does warrant me to stand here and thank my friends, my former coaches, my teammates. But I do want to thank a little lady who encouraged a youngster to play football,
got mad when I came in a little late sometimes. And she's here, and this is just as important for my little mother who raised me all by herself. God love you. And as Max said, Lombardi. It meant a lot to all of us. And probably for Paul Horning it meant a lot more than the other inductees, because I've always said there's 10 gentlemen in the Hall of Fame from that Green Bay Packer team, and that's a significant, singular honor. And I'm just as proud to be a member of the Packers going in as I am on an individual basis. I really mean that sincerely. But I've always said that there were only 2 athletes off that team that would have been in the Hall of Fame on the New Orleans Saints, the New York Giants, the Kansas City Chiefs, anywhere. Herb Adderley and Forrest Gregg were those 2 athletes. They were that good. But the rest of us, including Nitschke, needed Lombardi. Taylor needed him. Starr needed him. But above all, Horning needed him. I think he would be a very happy man today. I saw young Vince 2 days ago. And as the years go by, he's a spitting image. We love Lombardi. It was a special time and a special team. There was a genuine love on that football team, and I was glad to be a part of it. Today, I think there's a lot of people in this audience who can fully realize how happy and proud I am to be standing here along with these 4 gentlemen behind me who I'm so very proud to be going into the Hall of Fame with. This is the greatest moment we could all hope for. And I don't want to leave, and I'm going to come back every year to this place because it means a lot. And I want to thank my little wife, Angela, the little Italian I married, got me off the streets, thank God. If she ever puts me back on them, I'll kill her. She was Mike McCormick's secretary with the Philadelphia Eagles, and she knows a little about football, and Eddie Kyatt. She knows what it's like to be hired and fired in professional football. She's been a great inspiration for me and will be till the day I die. And last, again, thank you very much for this tremendous honor, and I want to thank Vince for the weather. Thank you very much.
Wally Lem was in his 2nd term as head coach of the Houston Oilers when Ken Houston joined the team in 1967. Lem continued to coach the Oilers for 4 more seasons as Ken developed into a superstar. Here to present Ken Houston, his first pro football coach, Wally Lem.
Mr. Muzzy, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Hall of Fame, and the inductees. It's a double pleasure for me to be here today. First, to help to induct Kenny Houston into the Hall of Fame, and secondly, because the team that I coached here in 1962, we played in the first Hall of Fame game against the New York Giants. The St. Louis Cardinals are here, along with a former player of mine, Larry Wilson. It is a privilege and a pleasure for me to help to present Kenny into the Hall of Fame, which he worked so hard for and struggled greatly for during the entire length of time that he played in the National Football League. I salute Kenny and his fellow inductees for the performance that they have given throughout the years in their play in the league. I feel a certain justification for Kenny having asked me to be his presenter, because back in 1967, when Kenny was a rookie defensive back with the Oilers, after the first Saturday scrimmage that we had, one of the scouts for the Oilers came to me and said, "You better talk to one of our rookies because he's getting ready to go home." And he told me who it was, and I went over and had about an hour and a half conversation with Kenny, in which I convinced him that he ought to at least stay for one more week to get a chance to prove to himself the abilities that he had. That 1 week grew into 14 years and gave him the opportunity to sit on this platform today. Ken, as was mentioned before, is a 1967 graduate of Prairie View and A&M. He later went on to get his master's degree at the same school. Now he takes second seat to his lovely wife Gusty in this respect because she has her doctorate in mathematics. Ken then came on to the Oilers and was, as he played on there for about 6 years, then went on to the Washington Redskins. That trade by the Redskins was the possible chance of the Indians to make up for the Manhattan transfer. Kenny was a steal by the Redskins, as he had already achieved stardom and had become a great strong safety, possibly being the best strong safety in the National Football League at that time. He not only succeeded on the football field, Kenny received many honors for his work with young people, both in Washington and in Houston. In 1981, he received the Byron White Award for humanitarian service from the National Football Players Association. The other awards that he received were the Department of the Army Award for Civilian Service, the Vince Lombardi Award, the Bart Starr Meritorious Service Award. He received the Redskin Man of the Year Award twice. He received the Timmy Award from the Special Olympics. He received the Dodgers NFL Man of the Year Award. And he has been picked on the state of Texas, all-time professional football team. Ken played 197 games in the NFL, 103 of those consecutively until he broke an arm in 1979. In those 14 years, he made 12 Pro Bowls, which is just less than Merlin Olsen, who is the only player who has ever played in more Pro Bowls than Kenny Houston. Kenny was chosen All-Conference or All-Pro 8 times, and he has a career record for interceptions returned for touchdowns with 9. He has the single-season record for interceptions returned for touchdowns, which were 4. Both of these records were achieved while he was playing for the Houston Oilers. At the close of his career, he was recognized as possibly the best strong safety that ever played in the game. Bob Beathard, who was his general manager at Washington, probably best described Kenny when he said, "Kenny Houston is your friend, whether he knows you or not. He may not know your name, but he'll still be your friend. He lives by his faith and beliefs, and he is the leader, not a leader, but the leader, through example. His heart is full of love for other people, and there is no better role model for the youth of today than Kenny Houston. It is with great pleasure that I present Kenny Houston to the National Football League Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.
First of all, giving honor to God and the enshrinees, Mr. Rozelle, and the members of the Hall of Fame committee. I'd like to say that I'm honored to be here, and I would like to thank you very much. And I also would like to say congratulations to Ms. Harney. I think you did an excellent job with your son, and I always like to see mothers in the audience. And in that sense, I would like to dedicate this enshrinement to me, to my mother and father who are not able to be here, but also to my mother who is able to be here, Miss Fanny Rice, and to all the people that could not be here that wanted to be here. It's a very special moment for me. I'm in awe of what is happening. I really am, because in my lifetime, I had no idea or did not dream that I would be in the Hall of Fame. I always thought the Hall of Fame was reserved for other people. I've got a real big kick out of watching guys, all these guys still here, Deacon Jones, Bobby Bell, the guy that I broke his record. Thank you. I talked to him about that, but you know, like at the time I was doing these, running these touchdowns back by interception, I had no idea it was after a record. The record at that time was 7, I think. Is that right? I had by Herb Adderley, and I got a chance to meet Herb. I thought Herb was, I thought he was an older guy until he was traded to Dallas. As a matter of fact, I thought all the Green Bay Packers were older guys. It's just an old team up there. You know, and Fuzzy, I really respect you, and I do hope that one day that everything's going to work out all right, and you've been a great person for me, and you can fit anywhere in the world. I want you to know that. I also had a chance to see my roommate out there, Calvin Hill. Calvin Hill was the guy that I roomed with with the Washington Redskins. And I'm very happy to see him here. There are so many people that are deserving, and the thing I appreciate about this, even though it's an individual honor, you cannot get here by yourself. I have several members of my family in the audience. I have my brother Joe, Shirley, I have Linda, I have Miss Fanny, I have my wife Gusty, I have all the Kingwood people that I just can't name because this would take up all my time. But it took up all the Hall of Fame time too getting them in here, but I appreciate that. And I want you to know that this has been one of the greatest weekends of my life. I had a chance to ride at the parade today. I'd like to thank the people of Canton because you have made this a wonderful week. And like Paul, I plan to be here every year like Deacon. You know, Deacon comes here to eat the food, but I want to come here to eat the people. This is the best weekend. When I hear of people, even at the present moment, I heard Coach Lim say that I'm being presented here at the Hall of Fame. I actually think that he's talking about somebody else because I do not see myself in this setting. You know, immortality is a word I never learned to use. I've always been afraid of it. Immortalized to me would mean things that I just wouldn't like to go into, but to think that my children, my nieces, my nephew, my brothers and sisters, they will be able to come here for all time. And I think what happened next year when I get back here and pinch myself, I will say that this is your bust in the Hall of Fame, and for an honor like that is just something that's unbelievable. Now, you know, I've been with a couple of teams, the Houston Oilers, and I've been with the Washington Redskins, but this team behind me will be the team that I remember. Guys that I've had a chance to watch, guys that I've had a chance to, some of them to play with, guys here that have made this thing very special. And you know, like, I felt a little bit intimidated. Not a little bit, I felt a lot intimidated. I got here and saw these guys making Schlitz beer commercials and stuff like that. And Ray Nitschke really gave me a hard time, and I think that he make you earn your way to the Hall of Fame. Doak Walker, a guy who I admire. There's only one hero from Texas, Calvin Hill. That's Doak Walker. I mean, to me, this is a guy that, you know, what can you say? Fran Tarkenton has thrown a ball for 27. I haven't walked 27 miles in my life. This guy threw a ball for 27 yards. Willie Lanier was so bad. We both played defense, and I was afraid when he was on the field. He was just this guy is unbelievable. And to come in with people like this, I think is a word, awesome is a good word to use. Coach George Allen. He's here somewhere, I know. Hey, Coach. I tell you, you know, like the thing about him, I played 6 years in Houston, and he discovered me. He really discovered me, right? And I went to Washington Redskins, and to me, that's one of the highlights of my career. He's a guy who was just, he could bring the best out of any old player. The saying was that if you played long enough, you would see time in Washington. That's how Calvin Hill got there. We saw every guy in the league. But is that John Mack? Hi, John Hart. Anyway, I am so elated to be in this setting. I'm so happy about the people that came down from Kingwood. I know the Blanks and the Zabukas are watching at Del Lago. They wanted to be here and couldn't come, but I just want you to know that I am very proud of this moment. It's the greatest part of my life. It's the epitome of professional football. And the best thing about the whole thing, I'm getting to go in on the bottom with the people that are my peers. I'd like to thank you very much for letting me show you this moment. Thank you.
Lamar Hunt, the founder of the American Football League, is the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs, for whom Willie Lanier played with distinction for 11 seasons. Today, Lamar Hunt himself, a 1972 enshrinee of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, is here to present Willie Lanier. Lamar Hunt.
Thank you, Jim. In the 1967 college draft, the Chiefs had the good fortune to have two number 2 draft choices. We thought our college scouting was fairly thorough at that time, but the facts are that by today's standards, we were back in the Stone Ages. The Chiefs used both of those number 2 draft choices at the linebacker position, and we found 2 players destined to star for 10 years. The first one came from a major college power, Notre Dame, where we drafted the captain of their national championship team, Jim Lynch. 2 players later in that second round, we selected Willie Lanier from a small college in Baltimore called Morgan State University. It's ironic that even though we took Willie in the second round, we had not previously talked to him in person. No member of our organization had really had a conversation with him. Willie had been discovered by a part-time scout named Frank Barnes, who was a friend of Hank Stram's. He did scouting for us on a regular basis, but he wasn't on our staff. To say that Willie was a sleeper was an understatement, but the ultimate decision on draft day was made by Hank. Once Hank saw Jim Lynch and Willie in training camp, he decided that both of them should play, and he moved Lynch to the outside, and Lanier was to play his middle position as a forceful bear of a man whose strength and intensity and striking power set new standards for the game. In Kansas City, Willie Lanier played on one of the greatest defensive teams in pro football history. He was the immovable rock who had to be avoided at all costs by an offense. In the frozen 1969 playoff game at Shea Stadium, it was his tears and determination that helped stop the Jets on what was the goal line stand, the all-time goal line stand of the Kansas City Chiefs history. 2 years later, in a game that I remember very vividly, in a play I still see in my mind, Willie hammered Larry Brown of the Redskins into submission in a memorable mid-season game with the Washington Redskins. The Hall of Fame was opened in 1963. Prior to today, only 10 linebackers have been honored on these steps. I must mention with great, great pride that Willie and his Chiefs teammate Bobby Bell, who was enshrined here a couple of years ago, are the only 2 linebackers in pro football history to be honored from the same team. Now you understand my statement of a few minutes ago about the greatness of that Chiefs defense. In August of 1945, Harry Truman was President of the United States. And the NFL, as an entity, was struggling to keep the sport alive with a roster of makeshift teams. Doak Walker and Bobby Lane, who are here behind me, were in the Merchant Marine together, and VJ Day was just a few weeks away. But in that scenario, in Clover, Virginia, a baby boy was born to the Robert Lanier family. And I want to say Clover, in this case, must have meant the four-leaf kind, because it was indeed a lucky day for the football fans of America. Later, a teenaged Willie Lanier furthered his education at a school called Maggie Walker High School in Richmond, Virginia. And judging by Willie's later financial acumen, which is substantial, that school was indeed prophetically named because it was named after the first black female bank president in America. Willie went on to Morgan State University, and he went there as an unrecruited, non-scholarship walk-on player. He actually told me the other day that he actually called the school in July to find out how he could get to enroll there. The rest is, of course, history. So today, we honor Mr. and Ms. Lanier's baby boy, who grew up to be such a bear of a man. His destiny was to be the prototype middle linebacker of his era. It was a period that was highlighted by the emergence of the AFL and the great stars who flourished in that league, and Willie was one of the very greatest. The caliber of the linebackers at Canton is, of course, above question. I mentioned that there have been only 10 before today. The staccato names echo 1,000 collisions along the way, because these guys really are the hitters of this game. They're the reminders that indeed how this game is meant to be played. One thinks of Joe Schmidt and Bednarik and Bulldog Turner, and one knows that each in turn have stood on these same steps. One reflects on the memories of Butkus and Nitschke and Notre Dame's George Connor, and remembers too the exploits of Bill George and Alex Wojciechowicz, who are gone but not forgotten. The honor roll is complete with Sam Huff and the incomparable Bobby Bell. And now today, a second Kansas City Chief takes his place, his rightful place, and I present to you a linebacker for the ages, Willie Lanier.
Thank you, Lamar, for that very fine and inspiring introduction. I think all of us, since we've been here, have found ourselves with the past enshrinees trying to tell us what might happen to us here. And I think that any time you have that kind of introduction, I have to be a little bit careful, because I guess I would say sometimes in the way I played, it might have been a little bit demonstrative. I would just like to say how happy I am to be here in Canton today, to be enshrined with the 4 gentlemen that are also being enshrined here today, and to be around so many others who have been my contemporaries in the game. I think in looking back since January, when it was announced that I would be one of the inductees for this year, I started trying to decide and understand exactly maybe how all this came to be. And of course you have to start with your parents, who gave birth to you and nurtured you and allowed you to develop into that person that you would become. I think that looking back at that, my father's here today, but unfortunately my mother passed 3 years ago. And it was a situation that she traveled to many games around the country, and I think she took a great joy in her youngest son's ability to play the sport. I was in the parade this morning, and the response that we've gotten here in Canton has been the greatest I've ever seen in my life. And to see the outpouring of respect and emotion, and everyone trying to make it better for you on this particular day that will be with all of us for the rest of our lives. I happened to see a gentleman who was my very first coach in Little League basketball in Richmond, Russell Williams. He was on the street waving as hard as he could. And I think that the essence of being here is that there are certain foundations that are laid very early in our lives. And if those foundations and those people who are part of that, and we follow the direction that they offer, hopefully you might find yourself at some day in this place. I was very blessed to have grown up in Richmond, Virginia with a Russell Williams and then a cannonball clipper at Maggie Walker High School, because he saw something in me when I was a 12th grader that he switched me to the linebacker position and said at that time that I had better lateral movement than anyone he had ever seen. At that time, I obviously had no idea what that would lead to. But to stand here today, I would not probably be here unless he had made that choice. I went on to Morgan State College, as Lamar mentioned, and it was a situation that a teammate of mine in high school, Gilbert Carter, who's here today also, was recruited by Morgan, and I had an interest in attending school there. So I sought out the school, talked to the coach, and found myself at Morgan for 4 years. And it was a great experience. I was nurtured there a little bit further by Earl Banks, who's here today. And I want to thank Earl, as he knows how I strongly feel about him, because that was the next step in coming toward Canton. I was in the Shrine a little bit earlier today, and I noticed George Knock, who's sitting in the back, who was a running back at Morgan, and Clarence Scott and Wade Johnson. And it's such a great thrill to stand here and know there's so many people from all the different phases of your life who can share in this kind of event. And I think that is the greatest thing that I've felt since all this occurred, is that everywhere along the way, those that have touched me, who've been a part, who've supported, can be involved in this event as it occurs today. But then moving on to Kansas City, being drafted number 2, going out to Kansas City, and then finding that there was a relationship built there with players of such a quality that I think very few players have had the opportunity to play with them. And the kind of caliber people that we played with, Jim Lynchy, of course, is here. Bobby Bell, I'm so pleased to be the second linebacker from that threesome, to be able to stand here before you, because we developed a bond and an attitude and a trust that I think is very rare in most anything you can do. Otis Taylor is here. I saw him last night. Buck Buchanan is, of course, here. And I know the rest of the teammates that I played with in Kansas City are all sharing this honor with me. And I feel that this is for all of you and for all of us. It is difficult to really explain how you actually feel when you stand here and realize that a stadium such as Foster Stadium is just like basically any other stadium in the country. You play on a field the same size all over this country, and you wonder at what point you really decide to try to be maybe a little bit better. But I think if there's one thread that runs between all of us who happen to be here, was that there was a tremendous amount of desire, a tremendous amount of dedication, and a belief that we had a skill to perform at not a level of others, but we set some sights that was only amongst ourselves. And in doing that, it allowed us to stand before you today. I look out in the audience and I see my 3 kids who are growing and really becoming a great part of the athletic life. And my oldest son will be going to college this year, which I think sometimes dates me a little bit. I feel a little bit young maybe coming into the Hall of Fame, but having a son that's going to college lets me know that's quite not the case. I just would like to say that there is no way that I can adequately state to everyone that's involved here, the Hall of Fame, the previous players that have been inducted, those that I'm being inducted with today, and I would like to say to those who are coming forward that this is worthy, this is great, this is something that should be strived for. And I think it's important that for all younger people who try to make decisions that will affect their lives in the future, that they recognize that these kind of events are possible for all of you out there, regardless of background, circumstances, or maybe if you have to call your coach to decide what college you'll attend. I would like to thank everyone who has attended today, and this has been and will always be one of the greatest moments that I can ever remember. Thank you.
One of the Minnesota Vikings founders, Max Winter, has been president of the club since 1965. Many outstanding players have excelled for the Vikings during Winter's 26-season tenure. But Fran Tarkenton is the first Viking to enter the Hall of Fame. To present Fran, Max Winter.
Thank you. I would like to take a minute or two to tell my wife Helen out there, I was not voted into the Hall of Fame, but I am a presenter. It is a tremendous honor for me to introduce to you the man who has been probably the most wonderful quarterback in the National Football League. There was never a time since the day that we drafted him in the third round out of Georgia College, out of University of Georgia, that he didn't appear to be a fellow that will be on this podium sooner or later. He has been named by so many people, including Bud Grant, as the greatest quarterback that ever stepped on a football field. His records that stand by itself is the most sensational thing. He has scored more yardage. I don't want to bore you with figures. He has scored more touchdowns by himself, but the great thing he did, he was the innovator. He was the innovator. A new concept was born as he became the quarterback. He was a fellow that showed the quarterbacks who stayed in the pocket behind the center and either passed to a running back or threw a pass from a pocket. He showed them how to scramble, how to score, how to win. He's the greatest, he was the greatest scrambler, and there are emulators now galore coming from all teams that want to emulate Tarkenton's ability and record. As I met him probably for the first time in 5 years, I looked at him and I was tempted to absolutely offer him another 5-year contract. I could give you some of the records that he has, and you can look it up in the record book. Sensational. But he logged 29 miles, get it, 29 miles by running and passing on a field, and that is about 3 miles more than a Boston Marathon. But he did not run the marathon, he ran on the football field. He steered Vikings to 3 Super Bowl games. I don't want to belabor how we came out. Okay, yes, we lost. But that was not his fault, really. There was a breakdown in many parts, and we just lost to teams that were good because they were also in the Super game, and there's got to be one team that wins, one that loses. It's incredible. Does that ring a bell? It's incredible. Today is a very successful businessman, a talented TV performer, and today I'm hopeful he will soon be a Viking executive. Thank you. Fran Tarkenton.
Thank you very much, Max. Past enshrinees and current members of the National Football League Hall of Fame, my fellow enshrinees, to you people who make all of this possible, thank you very much. The reason I chose Max Winter to introduce me is because he gave birth not only to my football career as a professional, but also to the Minnesota Vikings interprofessional football. When he put down his hard-earned cash, he risked it, and he paid my salary for most of my 18 years. And Mr. Winter, I am very grateful for you to do that. And also, I want you to know that I will definitely take you up on your offer of another 5 years at the prices you're paying today. I accept. He mentioned something about scrambling, and I did a little bit of that during my day. I really didn't want to do that, but if you look up here at some of the past enshrinees, you see Doug Atkins, and you see Deacon Jones, and you see Ray Nitschke, and they were trying to kill me, ladies and gentlemen. And that pocket got crowded, and I wanted to get out, and I did. And I turned into a very elusive, fast man because of that. This is a very special weekend, and like so much of what football's about, being with these fellow enshrinees has been a revealing experience also. I've been across the field against all of them but Doak Walker, Mr. Horning, Mr. Houston, Mr. Lanier, and the Doaker was a childhood hero of mine, Doak. That shows how old you are, Doak. I loved to watch number 37 play at SMU and then with the Detroit Lions, and I looked at him afar and had great respect for him, but this week I've grown to love him as human beings, as people, not people that just threw passes and caught passes and blocked and tackled, but as people that are sensitive and real, that care. When I look back over 18 years of professional football, 4 years of college football, 4 years of high school football, which comes to, I believe, 26 years, there are a lot of losses, and there are a lot of wins, and a lot of disappointments, and a lot of high points. And you think you'll never get over the losses that you have. They're devastating. How can I ever survive? And will the world survive them? The world really doesn't care a lot about your losses. And the wins that take you up to the highest point. And you think, boy, I'm pretty good. And finally you overcome all of that too, and you say, what comes out of 26 years of playing and all the years that the people up here have done? And what comes out is the most important things are not the wins and not the losses and not the awards and not the publicity and not the money. Lord knows where that ever went. But what lives are the experiences of the people that you play with, the Jim Marshalls, the Mick Tingelhoffs, the Carl Ellers, the Bob Tuckers, the Spider Lockharts. And those are the things that live in your heart and that stir your soul and move you on. And those are the things that live in your heart. And those are the important things. The most meaningful thing to me the entire weekend was this morning, the parade. And there were 200,000 or 300,000 people out there that were honoring my friends up here. And they were stretched along the streets of Canton, Ohio, mid-America, what America is all about. And we didn't know them and they didn't know us except by the common bond of watching us play football and enjoying watching us play football. And I saw people of all dimensions and all ages, and some in wheelchairs, and some sick, and some healthy. But you look into the eyes and to the faces of those people as they look back and forth to you, and there was a common bond there, and a common love, and a common concern that stirred my soul for the hour that we went down that street. And my soul is stirred today as I look out here of many of you who I do not know and have not met before, but I feel I know you. Of my many friends who came here from all over the country, from Japan to San Diego to here, George Shortley, from New York, from Minnesota, my partners Irwin Jacobs and Carl Polat from Minnesota, and many of you others, from Atlanta, Georgia, my golf buddies, and Alpo, we're going to beat you in the morning. I appreciate it more than you will ever know, my friends, for you to come here and share this moment with me, for this is the most humbling moment of my life, and the greatest moment of my life, and I thank you for coming here and sharing it with me today. To my lovely wife, Tammy, who puts up with me, and that's a large charge, and supports me and loves me, and like Paul's wife, Angela, she's promised to live with me the rest of my life, and I hope she does. My children, who are my best friends in the world, Angela and Melissa and Matthew, who traveled all over this country between New York and Minnesota and Atlanta and didn't complain a bit about changing schools or about having to make new friends, but it's what Daddy had to do, and I thank you and I love you for doing that. My little mother of 73 years young, who's stronger than all of us up on this stage, who what little competitive fire I got it all from her because she's a fighter, and every year that I didn't get into the hall, she always asked, I hope I can live to see the day when you did, and Mom, you did. To one who is not here, and I'm going to try to get through this, gang, without crying, but I'm not sure I can, so you bear with me. To one who is not here, a little 5'6" man who happened to be a preacher man, who wasn't a man of great stature. He wasn't on television in his ministry. He didn't make a lot of money. He didn't own any businesses. But that man was a great man and a great father, because when I fell down and disappointed him, instead of kicking me around and telling me I was a no-good so-and-so who wasn't like they used to be, he pulled me up in my deepest sorrows and disappointments and hugged me and told me he loved me and let me understand what love was all about. That little 5'6" man who did not know whether the football was blown or stuffed loved to watch his son play football. And he died watching me play football when we played in the famous Hail Mary game against the Dallas Cowboys in a playoff game, and he had just finished a sermon in Savannah, Georgia, and died some 10 years ago. That little man is not with us today in person, but I know he's looking on. And I know he's proud. Thank you.
Bobby Lane and Doak Walker were teammates and co-stars not only with the Detroit Lions in the 1950s, but also at Highland Park High School in Dallas a decade earlier. So it's only natural and appropriate that Bobby Lane, a 1967 Hall of Fame enshrinee, is here today to present Doak Walker for enshrinement. Bobby Lane.
This is exactly like 3rd and 3. That's a tough down. I've had the most fabulous time these last 3 months this weekend I've ever had in my life. Being with these Hall of Famers and these inductees, we have had a ball. You know, I've only had 2 great things happen to me in football. One was the first World Championship, and the other was being inducted to the Hall of Fame. And now I've got 3, and I believe this one today jumps up, and it's number 1. This Doker and myself, we started in grade school, not high school, in 1939. Now, y'all just think about that. And although we had quite a few different habits through the years, we have remained the closest friends in the world. He is probably the greatest player I ever played with in my life, and I know he's the greatest clutch player of all time. This is Doak's day, it's not mine. So I want to present the one and only, the Doak Walker.
that's pretty tough to follow. Well, Hall of Famers and Shrinees, ladies and gentlemen, and all my friends, this is something, I'll tell you. I really never did think I'd be up here, and in some ways I'd rather be out there where you are. But I guarantee you it's worth waiting for. You know, there's a lot of folks that are very, very happy that I'm in the Hall of Fame now. And for example, I know Mr. Earl Shriver, one of the board members of the Pro Hall of Fame. He can go back now anytime he wants to into Detroit, and he won't get hassled by either Gil Maines or Ron Kramer or Vince Bononis. He can come out the same way. Nick Kerbway, who was our former general manager there in Detroit, he doesn't have to make any more excuses why I'm not in the Hall of Fame. And he's made a bunch of them up to now. My father, he doesn't have to try to stay awake at night and try to figure out how he can stuff the ballot box. And he's always been a little prejudiced. And of course, Bobby and I, we don't have to stay up all night from now on working on our speeches. There's a lot of people I'd like to acknowledge and a lot of people I'd like to thank. I don't know where I could stop, and I know I would leave out a lot of people, and we'd be here a long time if I thanked everybody that comes to mind. But I would like to acknowledge my father. He's been waiting for this all my life. I'd like to thank the Detroit Lions for the opportunity they gave me to play in the National Football League team. I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame and all the Canton for making this a really memorial time and being so nice to all my friends and family. I'd like to thank my electors and my teammates. They're the real reason I'm here, collectively. There's a lot of teammates I have that are here today, and I know they receive this as much as I do and enjoy it. I'd like to thank just Bobby for being my friend all these years. You know, this is the greatest honor that any professional football player can ever receive or be acknowledged for. Today, as I can say, I am officially retired as an active player. I'm very proud to be with the class of '86, and more proud that my name goes down with the greatest players that ever played the game.
I would now please ask our audience to remain seated as we bring forward for group pictures with our particular enshrinees, the families of each new enshrinee.
Filled with lights, music, and the pageantry of any major event, a Civic Center crowd of over 3,000 this morning took part in kicking off the greatest weekend in football. Among the crowd were some of the best to ever play in the NFL. Marion Motley, Lou Groza, Dick Night Train Lane were among the former football greats at the Mayor's Breakfast. But this morning's festivities were dedicated to 5 former gridiron standouts, making up the 23rd Hall of Fame class to officially be inducted tomorrow. Given a traditional gold Hall of Fame jacket, Paul Hornung, Ken Houston, Willie Lanier, Fran Tarkington, and Doak Walker took the first step of living out the dream of every player ever to play in the NFL.
You play from high school to college to pro, and you hope to make each one of those teams and play at that particular level. I don't think anybody in their wildest imaginations could think that they would be selected as one of the few that have ever played the game of football to be in the Hall of Fame.
It's one of those long-range kind of goals that you don't really think about early on, but as you get into the game, you realize it might be possible. You start to hope for it, and it's the greatest thing that can really happen to anyone who's involved in sport.
Festivities surrounding this year's Hall of Fame event continue tomorrow when this year's class go through the induction ceremonies here on the steps of the Hall of Fame. Then the game at 2:30 between New England and St. Louis. From the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, this is Mike DePasquale for 23 Newsday Sports.
Paul? And I'm Paul Ryden in Canton, Ohio, where the Hall of Fame weekend kicked off. We'll have a very special visit with one of the enshrinees. Those stories and more coming up next on the Coors Sports page. While future Hall of Famers went back to work this weekend, pro football paused yesterday in Canton, Ohio to remember 5 legends past. They are the newest inductees into pro football's Hall of Fame. Paul Hornung, the all-around great out of Notre Dame, who did it all for the legendary Vince Lombardi and the Green Bay Packers. Kenny Houston, the free safety called by the Washington Redskins pro football's most underrated superstar. He was an AFL All-Star and NFL Pro Bowler 12 straight years. Another former star of the old AFL, Willie Lanier, who went on to stardom as a feared linebacker with the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Fran Tarkington, the scrambling quarterback out of Georgia, who in his 18 seasons passing and running accumulated nearly 29 miles in offense. And Doak Walker, despite his Heisman Trophy, he was considered too small for the NFL, but he proved his critics wrong with 6 outstanding seasons with the Detroit Lions, 5 Pro Bowls, 3 divisional titles, and 2 NFL championships. The final stop on the road to immortality is here in Canton, Ohio, home of Pro Football's Hall of Fame. They call this football's greatest weekend when Middle America puts on her best face for football's greatest players.
Yeah, Doreen, all those things you just mentioned are indeed important, the prestige, the crowds, and certainly the money, but there are a couple of other things involved in something like this.
The entire Canton community is proud of this event.
And with good reason. It's their chance to throw a party. And everyone, I mean everyone, is invited. BYOB here stands for Bring Your Own Bucks. Eat a little, drink a little, but by all means, spend a lot if you don't mind. However, there is a slightly more serious side to all this. A chance to heap praise and a touch of immortality on 5 men who played the game. And it is their chance to savor the moment. Now, some view it with humility.
Maybe I can appreciate a little bit more. I know I'm a little bit more stable and reserved at my age now, and if I would have got in 15 years ago, maybe I wouldn't have known how to appreciate it as much as I do now.
While others look at it as a sort of a reward for a job well done.
But you really can't focus on it because it's not something that's so immediate that you can really have control over. You just have to hope that you have good health and you play well for a period of time.
Now, for all 5 and the city of Canton, everything stops here tomorrow at noon, when the Hall of Fame welcomes its newest residents.
The NFL Player of the Year in 1960 and 1961. He led NFL scorers 3 years with a record 176 points in 1960. His career stats: 3,711 yards rushing, 130 pass receptions, 760 points scored. He tallied a record 19 points in the 1961 National Football League title game. He played in 2 Pro Bowls, and he was born December 23rd, 1935 in Louisville, Kentucky. Escorted today by Stephanie Belcher, please welcome Mr. Paul Hornung. He was traded to the Washington Redskins in 1973 for 5 players, which automatically tells you his value. He was acclaimed the National Football League's premier strong safety of the 1970s. He had excellent speed, quickness, size, and was a punishing tackler. He intercepted 49 passes in his career for 898 return yards and a record 9 touchdowns. He also scored on a blocked field goal, a fumble, and a punt return. In short, he did it all on defense. He was named to 2 AFL All-Star games and 10 Pro Bowls. And he was All-Pro or All-AFC and NFC in 8 of 9 years between 1971 and 1979. Born November 12, 1944 in Lufkin, Texas, and escorted today by Michelle Newsom, let's give a big welcome to Ken Houston. Was a number 2 draft pick in 1967 of the Kansas City Chiefs. Fast, agile, quick thinking, he was the anchor of the Chiefs' vaunted defense. And he was nicknamed Contact, and rightfully so, because of his ferocious tackling. He was also durable. He missed only 1 game in his last 10 years of playing. He intercepted 27 passes and returned them for 440 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he was a defensive star in the upset recorded by the Chiefs in Super Bowl IV. He was an All-AFL, AFC choice 7 times. He played in 2 AFL All-Star games and 5 AFC, NFC Pro Bowls. Born August 21st, 1945 in Clover, Virginia, and escorted today by Antoinette Perry. How about a big welcome for Willie Lanier? He moved to the Giants in 1967, then back to the Minnesota Vikings in 1972 in a couple of stunning trades. He leads all lifetime passers in passing attempts with 6,467 and in completions with 3,686 and in total yards with 47,000 plus, also in touchdowns for 342. Trying to get your hands on this fella and trying to bring him down was like tackling greased lightning. He was the exciting, elusive scrambler. He also rushed for better than 3,600 yards and 32 touchdowns. And he led the Vikings into 3 Super Bowls. A 4-time All-NFL selection and a Pro Bowl selection 9 times during his career. He was born February 3rd, 1940 in Richmond, Virginia. He's escorted today by Kimberly Scott, and let us all welcome the scrambler Fran Tarkenton. And a 1948 Heisman Trophy winner. He played a major role in the Lions' tremendous success in the early 1950s. He once ran 62 yards for a winning touchdown in the 1952 title game. He was an extremely versatile player, rushing, passing, receiving, returning punts and kickoffs, punting, place kicking, and played defense in emergencies, maybe even washed some uniforms, I don't know. He scored 534 points in his career and won 2 National Football League scoring titles. Not only that, he was an All-NFL selection for 4 years and played in 5 Pro Bowls. Born on New Year's Day in 1927 in Dallas, Texas, and escorted today by Mita White, we welcome Mr. Doak Walker.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Golden Boy, Paul Hornung. To the platform by Michelle Newsom. Ladies and gentlemen, Ken Houston. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the game's great linebackers, Willie Lanier. Ladies and gentlemen, Francis Tarkenton. Ladies and gentlemen, Hall of Famer Doak Walker.
Well, next, we have our 1986 enshrinee, Paul Hornung, and what a fine man he is. 9 years with the Green Bay Packers from 1957 to 1966. The 6'2", 220-pounder was an all-around player who could run, pass, kick, and catch passes. Paul led the National Football League in scoring for 3 straight years in 1959, 1960, and 1961. Buck, I know you know him.
You know him for me
Say
with
some
Paul
good things
Hornung.
about him.
Yeah, that's a good. The Golden Boy they called him. What a great.
The Golden Boy indeed.
What a great player. He knows a friend of mine in Louisville, Kentucky by the name of Moore Mormon.
Yeah, welcome Ken Houston. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
He had a 14-year pro career, 6 years with the Houston Oilers, Buck,
Great-
as you well know, and 8
great
years with the
player.
Washington Redskins. And Ken was recognized as the premier strong safety in his time as he finished with a career 49 interceptions and scored 12 touchdowns as a defensive back.
Boy, he made a lot of great plays, a lot of big plays, and when he went to look like the Redskins, his career really blossomed. So he had some outstanding years up there with George Allen, the Washington Redskins in Washington, D.C.
Very good. So welcome Ken Houston to the 1986. Mr. Willie Lanier.
Mr. Willie Lanier. He played for 11 years at Kansas City, and we were teammates for about 8 years. And boy, he had my back all the time, I tell you. He's riding with the owner of the team, Lamar Hunt, who owns the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think he's going to present with it today. It's so great to see him. What an outstanding person, what an outstanding player he is. Two of my favorite people, Lamar Hunt and Willie Lanier.
I think he sees you right now, as a
I know
matter
he
of
sees
fact.
me,
There he
yeah,
is.
sure.
I gave
They
him a good
enjoyed it
wave.
very much.
That's great.
Hi, Lamar, Willie. Isn't it great? It's great to see Kansas City people up here.
Boy, it sure is. That's the 1986 enshrinee, Willie Lanier. Fran had 6,467 pass attempts, and that's a National Football League record, Buck. He had 3,686 career completions, over 47,000 yards passing, and hit for 342 aerial touchdowns. And if you add to that a stunning 3,674 yards rushing, you have a total career figure of over 50,000 yards of offense.
He wasn't bashful. Now, I'll tell you that. He ran the ball, he threw the ball, and you can tell by his stats that he's probably all-time leading offensive player in the National Football League. Just an outstanding
What a guy.
quarterback. Doug Walker going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this afternoon. I've met him. Great player, great person. Steamboat Springs. He has a pro ski shop in Steamboat. That's where I met him at, and just had a great time with Doug Walker.
Well, he was a running back for the Detroit Lions 1950 through 1955, and at only 5'11" and 173 pounds, he proved he could play in the National Football League by being named to all NFL teams in 1950, 51, 53, and 54. So Doak Walker, one of our 1986 enshrinees. And